Hey, it's John at Cordon Real Estate, and lately I've seen a lot of advertisements or listings for properties for sale that say we have a large lot perfect for adding an ADU. Well, there are reasons why you might want to add an ADU, but there's also a lot of reasons why you might not, and we're going to talk about those today. First, what does ADU stand for? Here in California, an ADU stands for accessory dwelling unit. It's an additional dwelling unit in addition to the primary home that's on a lot, and it can be detached or attached. Usually has a door to the outside, and it usually also has its own separate lines for gas, electric, and any other utilities, and therefore its own meter. So it can be billed separately by the utility companies from the primary home. Let's make sure not to confuse an ADU with a guest house. A guest house is a structure that, if it's properly permitted, is not required to have a kitchen, maybe not a bathroom. All that it has to have is usually a bedroom. And those services or facilities, such as a kitchen and bathroom, can be serviced by the primary house on the lot. An ADU, however, will typically, in order to be properly meeting the building codes, is going to be meant for longer term occupancy. It will have to have a kitchen. It will have to have a bathroom. Properly constructed and permitted ADUs meet all the typical requirements that you'd find for a standalone single-family home, and they can be used either as extra space for living space for the family, or they can also be used as a rental. There are three main reasons why someone might want to add an ADU to their property, and those reasons are simply, number one, they might want more space available on their property. Maybe they have in-laws moving in. Maybe they're growing their family. They're having more kids and want more space. Maybe they need office space or a studio for art. Any reason why they might want more space in the home. The second reason is they may plan to enjoy that space for a while, but also additional permitted square footage increases the value of the home if they sell in the future. And the third reason for an ADU, the one that's touted the most, is hey, it's a separate unit. You can rent it out and generate rental income, which we're going to talk about more here in a minute. So why would you not want to construct an ADU on a lot that has the size for it? Well, mostly because of the cost. If you are just simply looking for additional square footage for your family or for an office or an art studio or something like that that does not require that the space be separate and have separate gas meters, electric meters, etc., doing a simple home remodel to expand the square footage is a lot more cost efficient than putting all the effort and time and expense required to construct an ADU. So here are my 5 primary reasons why I typically recommend not constructing an ADU in a residential area. And the first one is probably the most simple, and that is return on investment. With most ADUs, you're going to be able to build maybe a studio or a one-bedroom, which is going to have to include a bath and a kitchen. And the rental income that you get from that is probably going to be insufficient to not only give you a good return on investment in the initial construction, but also to make money month over month, considering the costs of maintaining that property as a rental. So ROI is insufficiency is the first reason why I recommend not having an ADU constructed. Reason number 2 is parking. Now, in most areas, you are not required by permit or by building code to provide parking for your tenants. You can tell them, hey, I'm building a ADU over my garage, but I'm not going to give you garage space. You can't park in my driveway. Street parking is all that's available. And that's fine, but Now you're adding in street parking congestion to the neighborhood, which may be a problem. You also could face other problems with street parking, such as if you live near typically a hospital, university, or other school. You may be in a neighborhood where permit parking is required during the day. Permit parking is usually regulated by the city. You have to get a permit, and they are only handing out permits for people that maybe work near the hospital by which you're located. And therefore, your tenants would have no place to park during the day. The other thing is you may also live in a place or in an area where parking is regulated by an HOA or homeowners association. I happen to live near a HOA area where they do not permit street parking during the evening and at night. If you have Joe the plumber come to work on your house, yeah, Joe can park his truck at the curb while he's there working. However, the HOA is going to fine you if you park on the street. They don't like that. Typically, neighborhoods that have a lot of cars parked on the streets are neighborhoods that don't have very good home values. The more the cars on the street, the lower the values is typically the rule. So you want to check with your HOA, number one, to make sure that you can put in an ADU in the neighborhood, but also find out if the HOA has any restrictions on parking. Our third reason is noise. Now, we're not talking about somebody who has a stereo or a TV blasting that holds parties every Saturday night with hundreds of people coming over. Not necessarily that, but there is the coming and going. Let's say if you have a tenant that goes to work in the morning and simply starts up their truck and leaves in the morning, might wake you up. You have someone coming and going from your property, creating just generally living noises. Maybe you're used to that for the family that you have, people coming and going, but additional people coming and going adds noise to your living situation, and you may not want that. Another reason we might want to think twice before adding an ADU is that even though adding permitted square footage to a home does improve its value, adding extra rental units in a neighborhood does not. We know that neighborhoods that are primarily owner occupied tend to hold their value, and the properties increase their value over time, whereas neighborhoods that have a lot of rental units have more problems with traffic, congestion, parking problems, noise problems, etc., etc. Therefore, when you convert some space into rental space, there is a potential that you're going to influence neighborhood property values negatively. And the fifth and final, and I consider most important reason for not installing an ADU on your property and renting it out is because once you do so, you have entered the rental property business with all the obligations that are involved in that. And in most areas, cities and counties, you are normally going to be required to obtain a business license, perhaps a permit, or both. And you're going to have to pay some kind of fees for that. So there's a cost. Next thing you're going to have to do is have a business bookkeeping system and records keeping system, and you're going to have to keep that meticulously according to business standards. And the third thing that is a concern with starting any business or having a business going is you're going to now have to pay taxes on that rental property income, which means you're going to have additional documents that you're going to need to file with your taxes. Another important consideration of being in the rental property business is staying up to date and in compliance with leasing and landlord-tenant requirements, because they come down hot and heavy in California. There's a lot of them. There are state regulations. Now there are also more county regulations than there used to be. And now many cities, especially the larger cities, also have a lot of regulations that you need to be keeping up on as a landlord. Another issue is making sure that you have a good way to collect rents. Rent collection, we would think that if you only have one tenant, is not a very big deal. It depends on the tenant. If the tenant pays on time every month, well, then everything is good. When they don't pay, you need to make sure that you're up to date on what you can do to get that tenant to pay, and that is another regulatory issue that you need to comply with. Also consider that becoming a landlord is taking on another full-time 24-hour-a-day job. Not only are you required to maintain the property, which includes emergency repairs, and you may not do them yourself, but you'll get the call, and then you have to call the plumber, the electrician, whoever's required to take care of that emergency. But also the way that tenants comply with your lease is also a 24-hour job. Hopefully, if you have good tenants, you don't have a lot of problems. However, if you have tenants that make a lot of noise at night, if they smoke even though you have a non-smoking property, and that smoke drifts into the neighbor's backyard and they don't like it, you're going to get neighbor complaints. There's all sorts of things that go on. Being a landlord is really a 24-hour job, and you need to consider that if you're going to put a rental unit on your property. There are two financial considerations that most ADU landlords forget to consider when they're looking at putting in an ADU and renting it out. They think that all the money is coming in, but unfortunately a lot of money goes out too. And there are two primary ways that it goes out the door. The first is maintenance, and the maintenance is either emergency or non-emergency. There are things like if a water heater goes out or a furnace goes out. There's all sorts of emergencies that the landlord has to be prepared to pay to get taken care of right away. So you do need to have some financial reserves, money that you set aside up front to handle any emergency that could come along. And the second financial consideration is vacancy rate. Depending upon where you're located, it may take 1 month, it may take 2 months to find tenants. Once your current tenant says, hey, my lease is up, I'm moving out of state, goodbye, and now you have to put that rental on the market. In the meantime, whatever costs are required to carry that property, whether you want to keep the lights on, pay for the lights to stay on so you can continue showing it to prospective tenants, or whatever those costs might be. Regardless, you have no money coming in while it's vacant, and you need to consider that in your business plan. ADU rental business is a phrase that I share with a lot of landlords who have full-time employment, and they just maybe at the end of a busy day want to come home and put their feet up. And that is, when you have an ADU especially, you are coming home to work every day. And I'll let you think about that. If you have any questions or comments on anything I've said, please leave them below. If you have suggestions for additional videos that I could do on this topic, please let me know. I hope you're having a wonderful holiday season. I'll see you next week. Again, this is John at Cordon Real Estate, wishing everyone a happy holiday.